All right. Well, glad that you're here this morning. I'm Scott, if we haven't had the chance to meet. And you don't need to know a ton about my week, but for the purposes of where we're going today, you need to know that I was almost hit by a car twice this week. Not once, but twice. And twice on one singular crossing of the street at an intersection that, if you're local, will not surprise you, Fort Avenue and Webster Street. Now, the delicious irony, if this is too heavy of a story to lead off and you need something lighthearted, was I was sitting in Coba Cafe, which is one of my little favorite neighborhood spots for coffee, and I'm sitting in the front bay window trying to write this message that I'm about to share with you, distracted by how bad of an intersection that really is. I'm watching people navigate this transition and have near misses and accidents, and I keep looking up going someone should do something about this, right? And then which the four-way stop is a marked improvement from what it used to be, but I'm distracted by the place that's man, people do not know how to navigate this four-way stop. And then I step outside and a person that's looking to turn right and trying to do that quick, nobody's here, I'm gonna sneak through, doesn't do the double take and is annoyed at my general presence as a pedestrian. But then another person who's coming on full tilt, not gonna stop, looking, I can see them looking down at their phone, they slam on the brakes, I jump back, I may have slapped their car and told them Jesus loves them, but the reality is, at this little intersection, it shows something about the human condition. And I've been the driver in that intersection too, so I don't mean any shade. Driving in that intersection is also particularly tough because it's kind of a free-for-all and everyone's trying to figure it out. Transitions, of which that four-way stop is one, are clunky for us. We get tripped up in transition, right? Because it requires us, we're going one way, we're doing our thing, we're living the dream, and then something disrupts us, and we go, okay, even if it's a good thing, even if we're excited about where we're going, to have to navigate a transition has this potential to just really derail us and actually do some harm to the people around us or maybe to ourselves. And what we wanted to navigate together as a church over these next few weeks is just, what does it mean to live in that tension, and where have God's people lived in that tension? We're taking a look at just different characters in the story arc of the scriptures that have been stuck in moments like ones that you're in and have navigated those things for better or for worse. And so we're going to take a look today at a guy named Terah, T-E-R-A-H, who kind of ends the first section of Scripture and sort of as a bridge to a new beginning, but has his own kind of moment of transition that sort of makes him kind of a supporting character versus someone that you probably have heard of or talk about. First 11 chapters of Genesis start beautifully. Creation, oneness, connection with God, connection with one another, naked and unashamed, but move pretty quickly to distrust, disconnection, violence, corruption. A hard reset there in the middle doesn't bring things back up and online. And so you get to the end of the 11th chapter of Genesis, you have this Tower of Babel moment where everyone's working together and collaborating, and they even find a way to make that not a good thing. And so you get to the end of what becomes now a really depressing 9 of 11 chapters of the first 11 books of the Bible. And there's this guy named Terah who is going to usher in the next thing. Right? This is the account of Terah's family line. This is from Genesis 11, verse 27. Terah became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran became the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans in the land of his birth. Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Now Sarai was childless because she was not able to conceive. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. All right, so if you didn't catch this, here's a guy with 3 sons. One of his sons dies. One of his sons does not have the physical capacity to bear children, like in terms of like the line's not going to continue. One son's not going to make this journey, but they're living a life in like modern day Iraq. That's where Ur is. And they're going to set out for this land of Canaan. And they go, and it seems like for a minute, if you read just this passage, like it's not really fair that like Abraham is sort of known as this father of like amongst Islam and Judaism and Christianity for this big, bold faith, because like Terah is the one that actually left Ur and like led them out. Like it reads kind of that way. But then we get to this verse 31 and we get a clue as to what may be going on. Like they get to this area called Haran, which is confusing because there's also a person named Haran in this passage, but Haran with 2 R's. They get to this town, which is kind of a caravan route, kind of a center of trade. You know, think about a place where there might be a Buc-ee's or a Flying J travel plaza, right? Like, and you just go, oh, this is great. And he stops. He stops. He doesn't actually go to the land of Canaan. He stops in Haran. Verse 31 tells us he settled there. Right? So Abraham is going to be the one. Abram is what he's going to be called here in chapter 12. That's going to usher in this next thing. And Terah is kind of this bridge. Now, so there's not scandal in this passage, right? Like Terah's story of transition is not one of scandal. It's not one of drug addiction. It's not one of being a disengaged dad as far as like, well, he didn't go with me. He didn't support me. He's a guy that got to Haran, got to where the Flying J Travel Plaza is, and he settled and was like, this is pretty good. I'm for it. And I wonder just if that matches your impulses at all as it relates to transition. That if you ever just find yourself like Terah, maybe missing the thing that God is ultimately stirring and ushering in because honestly, transition is just a lot, and you're looking for something easy and tangible and in front of you. That's what I want to talk about today. Terah's story is a very socially acceptable story of poor navigation of transition, because he's not hurting anybody, in a sense. He didn't kill a man because he got angry about something. He didn't develop an addiction or something that like destroyed his family. He just got to Haran and was like, pretty good here. I think I'm good. Why does that matter in this text? And what does it tell us about the ways that we might settle in times of transition? Let's just think about that for a few minutes. The first thing I would observe is that this story is one where Terah seems to choose a sense of comfort over the covenant. The covenant, like there's a thing that chapter 12 is going to usher in. The Lord said to Abram, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to a land I will show you. There's a covenant, the Abrahamic covenant is what's going to usher in. It's why 3 world faiths like trace their lineage to this guy, because he's stepping out to demonstrate a new way to understand the first 11 chapters of Genesis in this case, this covenantal God. But what Haran seems to be interested in is a thing that I think I'm interested in and you're interested in, which is just like, let's get somewhere and chill. Like, and maybe this just describes the way you navigate life. I mean, I want an Abraham story in a lot of facets of my life, but then when I get to doing those things, I just find myself saying things aloud like, can anything be easy? Like just, you imagine a world going into your Monday where you step into a meeting and you say an idea and everyone's like, that's great, let's do it. Or you navigate like a marital conflict or a friend conflict and you're just able to like make eye contact that says, I'm sorry, we're good, everything is restored. Or you just like, you've got the job, you've got the promotion, you don't even have to apply, you don't even have to go to the interview. Like it's just like, we're going to call you because you're just so vital and you don't have to advocate for yourself. Like I like the idea of those things, don't you? Like, and if we were just detailing our perfect week with no like road bumps, a lot of the features would be stuff like that. The reality, of course, is that those things only provide a sense of comfort, right? Just like you can look externally healthy and cancer can be attacking your inner core. You know, just like you can sometimes in a marriage or a significant relationship, like you're not actively fighting, you're not screaming, you're not throwing things at each other, but the resentment and the contempt is building up and is getting toxic, and this relationship's getting infected. Just like you can completely like lose a good, easy idea could be the enemy of some great innovation you or your company has because you're collaborating together and there's maybe some healthy conflict. Like comfort is only, it's a sense of comfort, really, because honestly, these moments will happen in your story. If they haven't, like, you're just going to be reminded how small you are and how fragile life can really be. Well, Haran, he goes 400 miles. But he gets to that place and he's like, I'm good. He lives another 70 years. I don't know if he like maybe thinks like it's time to like sit down and watch some Golden Girls. Like it's time to just relax. He doesn't do it. So one of the things that theologians wrestle with was, did Terah was he like excited about God for a while? Was he excited about this thing that was stirring, or did it just kind of stall out? Or was it Abram that was really ushering it in? Because that can happen sometimes where like a kid in your family maybe has an encounter at camp or has an encounter with God, and now they're saying to a family, like, I want to go to church, I want to worship together as a family, I want to be part, like that happens all the time. One of the things the scriptures tell us, Stephen, the first Christian martyr in the book of Acts, he says, but brothers and sisters, listen to me, the God of glory appealed before our father Abraham while he was still in Mesopotamia, before he lived in Haran. So what Stephen says that the tradition 2,000 years after the fact is like, hey, it was Abram like maybe stoking Terah to like go do this thing. Joshua seems to indicate that when Haran gets to Terah, or Terah gets to Haran rather, he kind of reverts back to like the gods of Ur. He goes back to worshiping the moon gods that would be more incumbent of his people. So Haran in the sense represents a space where Terah has like sort of a spiritual conversation. He's intrigued by maybe something that's going on in his son's life, but like the comforts of a familiar thing just kind of like set him back in a place of settling. And does that resemble at all your life? Like how you might navigate transition? We can see maybe from a physical sense of comfort. I think even as a spiritual community, there's ways that a sense of comfort seeps in. This is not original to me. This was actually new information. There's a thing in the Dutch Reformed tradition called like common grace stopping points. I was not familiar with this until this week, where just like, hey, common grace is this idea that things that you don't have to be a Christian to enjoy, right? Like you can enjoy a cup of coffee and not have to like have some religious encounter to have enjoyed the cup of coffee. That's common grace. Like the smell of smoked meat. You might walk down the street and you're like, I'm into that. Common grace stopping points. Is this what? So in an idea of the Dutch Reformed tradition, here's 4 of them that relate to maybe this topic. Orthodox theology without heart transformation. Meaning, like, if I just believe the right things and like get myself into the in crowd theologically, but I don't actually love people, and I don't actually give to people, and I don't actually like live with any kind of spiritual fruit, I'm good. Moral reform without gospel dependence, right? That said differently, I'm just going to be a good person. I'm going to be a good human. The gospel actually says, left to your own devices, you're kind of not. Like, you will choose things that are self-destructive to you and harmful to other people. And this isn't some Jonathan Edwards sermon when I'm saying that, right? This is not like, you are the worst. Like, this is like, it's just you, right? Like, you're gonna yeah, if you had a little bit of runway and leash, you could find yourself into some nonsense, right? Religious activity without spiritual intimacy, right? I go to church, I check the box. Cultural sophistication without biblical fidelity. Like, said differently, maybe, like, what are those one or two Bible passages that make me look good in the virtue signaling world of my neighborhood while neglecting the other Bible passages that might be a point of challenge for my neighbors, right? Like the wrestling, the honest, earnest wrestling with all of it in light of God's mercy and love, right? So common grace stopping points here to say, like, it's very easy, even in a church circle, a Christian circle of, like, just, we're not worshiping moon gods out on these streets. Many of us, right? Like, maybe you are, but, like, I'm not. But I can find myself all the time, very similar to Tara, just going, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to be a good person. I get to the rut where I just kind of check the box spiritually. Hey, I'm just trying to, like, wrestle with this theological topic, but I'm not actually meeting or engaging my neighbors. Like, that's a thing we do. So just paying attention to the ways in which our own pursuit of comfort in transition is actually robbing us of the invitation to encounter the things God has for us in our story, right? Because often, and I don't like this, I mean, I'm saying it, but I don't want it to be true. It's crisis, it's times of dependence where we actually find ourselves coming to God, going, God, we need your help, we need your guidance, we need your call. It's when things aren't easy that we tend to come to the end of ourselves in a world of very high-achieving, self-reliant people. And like, that is the thing Tara, in kind of his settling, maybe demonstrates to us as a danger of transition. Let me hit another one. We can settle for a sense of certainty over curiosity. And what I mean, when I say a sense of certainty, I don't mean, like, well, who can know absolute truth, man? I mean, just believe what you believe and just coexist with the bumper stick. I don't mean, like, we can't know truth. What I think I am saying, though, and I would say, like your understanding of the truth is flawed, and so is mine, right? So holy curiosity actually helps us poke at the areas where we just get locked in. You know, like for Tara, I think it's just like, you get to this point where you're like, I don't get this. Like this, I mean, if he was sort of compelled by Abram's call, maybe he gets to Haran and he goes, that's his thing. Like, I don't get it. Or it was intriguing, but it kind of didn't work for me. I hit a wall. That's a thing that happens in your story, isn't it? It's a thing that happens in mine. And when we struggle for, like, a sense of certainty over, like, a holy curiosity. Now, Abram's story is full of drama. I mean, Abram, like, as a father of many nations, does plenty of stupid things. Like, read on, and he's heroic, but he's not a hero. Like, he does some stuff that's wrong and dumb. But there is, in all of it, kind of a holy curiosity about what are you doing in this sense of covenant? What is this understanding of God and covenantal God, like, calling me to this new place? What is it making me unlearn and learn and relearn all over again? I think one of the reasons, and you can see this culturally, like we're having this kind of airing of grievances about the past 5 years, aren't we? Like, sort of in our cultural moment. And whatever you think of it, like, let's be mad at everyone that led us through COVID because there were things to be mad about COVID. Like, I'm not going to commentate on that aspect of it, but simply the fact that that there is that airing of grievances, right? Like we're kind of mad about how the past 5 years went in some cultural ways. Why? Why? Because every aspect of your life was turned up on its head. Every aspect was on, how do you meet friends? How do you move to a city? How do you be successful at your job? How do you like, go get groceries? Like, every aspect of your life where you had a sense of certainty, you could no longer assume certainty. And there was this guy, like, that I listened to, like, that was kind of helping me sort of think about that moment going, and he's got a kind of a southern drawl. He's like, you got to think about what this makes possible. And I'm like, shut up. Just tell me how long this stupidity is going to last, how long we can, okay, because if you tell me I'll do like the equation and I'll figure out a plan. What I didn't want to have to do, literally in every aspect of my life, was go, what does this make possible? But there was a sense of like, that's what we were having to do, right? What does this make possible? Like when we're out of that era of watching Tiger King and taking up the piano again, what did it make possible to say, hey, God, what does it mean to submit my methods and means for how I bring flourishing to the world, but submit to your mission, right? When we get into the weeds of like how we get tripped up in like living out God's mission, we're often, when we get tripped up, that thing that will rob us of that like holy curiosity is clinging to the nostalgia of the past. Do you ever notice that there's never been a good song written since you were 21 years old, and there hasn't been good movies since you were in your teens? Like everything modern is dumb because the golden age was when you were 16 to 21 years old, right? Why? Because those were soundtracks for a particular area of your life and an era of life, and it warms you to think about that. Like, why do you watch Full House on like not because it's quality television, but because it's like brain candy. It sort of reminds you of a simpler time where problems got solved in 22 minutes and everyone hugged it out. Like there's something in our flesh that clings to like the thing that happened back there. And that's what Tara does. This Foundry Forward thing that Susanna is ushering in, like just said differently than Susanna's saying it, for 135 years on this corner, people have tried to represent Jesus well. I'm grateful for that. The contextual moment, like we're not having to stand up in front of you and talk about bomb insurance on the building. But there was a time when people had to do that with this building, when they were like worried about a Luftwaffe attack on Baltimore. Radio programming out of our building would be really primitive now, but was really cutting edge in like the 1950s. There's a Baltimore Sun article about how edgy Riverside Baptist was when the pastor told people, boys, you don't have to wear your coats to church in the summertime. Woo! That got media coverage in like 1917. Yeah, it did. We should share the article. Like it's in the archives. You can find it in the Sun. Like that was cutting edge. The means and the methods change. The ministry and the mission of God do not. So what we're trying to do is we're walking the city and asking you to seek the peace of the city and say, hey, let's not just live with a nostalgia of what kind of neighborhood this was when you moved here 3 years ago, or when you moved here 12 years ago, or when you lived in Fed, but now you live here. It's like, let's seek the peace of what's happening as we're walking and stirring and praying what God is doing in the here and now. And let's be willing and open-handed with our means and our methods so that this mission of God continues to be fulfilled by God's grace long after each of us have breathed our last, right? For another 135 years. And that's what we're trying to do when we say, hey, Foundry Forward, that's what it's about. It's not some subversive oh, we're trying to build a bath. I mean, yes, not spinning around, like being able to spin around in a bathroom. What a visual. Put that on the flyer, right? But there's so much more than that. Lastly, and we'll be quick. It's this idea of not just choosing calling, or actually pursuing God's calling, but not just a sense of cultural acclaim. Like Tara gets to Heron and likes what he sees there. It looks good for him. It matches culturally, and you could even say, even as a dad, hey, I got you out of Ur. That's a thing God probably used. I got you out of Ur. I got you to a place where you even had the capacity to process what it means to go do your next little God thing. I can give the guy some grace for that. That required some effort. That required some energy. That required some hustle. But he gets there and he becomes Newton's first law of motion, right? The object at rest wants to remain at rest. Yep. Okay, I'm locked in now. Did a good thing. The writer of Hebrews says this about Abraham that differentiates him from his father. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, He made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. He was looking forward to the city whose foundation, he's looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. So a city built by like God's vision and calling in his story versus like the cultural pictures of success in Haran that he has inherited. And you have inherited pictures of baselines of like what success looks like, right? This is the challenge when we're praying about, should I take this job? Should I move to this city? Should I go to this place? Should I date this person? Can I just talk real quickly? And I promise I'll be fast. 2 overcorrections about when we're seeking God's calling. Like, if we're honest, do you ever notice that, like, if all of your God-affirming things are bigger and better and more money and more square footage, like one of the things that can happen in pursuing God's calling is that we actually pursue a picture of God that looks a little bit more like the American dream. Like, you're a lot more Americanized than you know, right? I can't say this for every aspect of your story, but I know I can find plenty of times in the scriptures where people like stepped out in faith and had some level of bigger and better reward. But I can also find Jesus like walking away from comfort and affluence to enter broken spaces. Now, I also think the opposite is true. We can make God's calling on our life like if it's not the hardest and scariest and biggest and like then it's not God's call. And yeah, I don't think that's true either. Like, I don't know that the call of God is intended to just be drudgery for the sake of drudgery and bludgeoning for the sake of bludgeoning. What I actually think makes this really challenging is that, yeah, some of you should take the promotion and some of you should say no. But what we're talking about in the interim is, like, what is the motivation and how does God call in our life speak to those motivations and those formations and our cultural pictures of success? This picture popped up on my timeline this week. This is where we'll begin to end. It's a picture of my family a month before we moved to Baltimore. Yeah, so there we are. But I remember we're chilling in Annapolis. We're living our best life in Annapolis. And what I can remember about this thing is that I can remember in preparation for this sermon, when I saw that picture, I was remembering the lunchtime conversation. Because we were sitting with a couple that was raising their kids in New York City. And I remember, like, they're just like, what are you afraid about? You ready to do this? And I was like, planning a church should terrify me. It does, but you know what terrifies me even more is, like, I didn't raise my kids. I mean, I'm from Western Maryland. I'm from a cul-de-sac. My wife's from a tobacco farm in northern Kentucky. Like, why do you trust us to raise our kids in the city, let alone build a church? Like, what I was really struggling with, and what I spent a lot of our time behind those smiling faces, was a dude going, God, I don't have a scorecard for like what successfully raising my kids here looks like. Now, here's the irony. When my children are posing for a similar picture with their families, their baseline will be, I grew up in a city. I don't know how to raise my kids in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. I don't know how to raise my kids in a place where we got to drive 45 minutes to get to a movie theater. It's a default setting that I had to like submit to God. Like I'm sharing that with you as just like I'm remembering that conversation like it happened yesterday when I saw that picture. It was like, oh, that I am that third point, because I remember that being like a whole thing for me. And the answer here isn't, yes, you should raise your kids in the city. No, you should never raise your kids in the city. What do you think? Like it's more like, what does it mean to pursue God's call in your life when there's so much cultural baggage and pressure as far as what it means for you to be successful in relationships, successful in your job, successful as a son, successful as a daughter, successful as a neighbor, successful as a citizen? Are you settling for like a milquetoast picture of what that looks like, or earnestly trying to discern the voice of God amongst all of the other ways that you're being formed? Let's go back to the idea of I'm going to get hit by a car, but I didn't. and we'll begin to end. One of the things that stands out to me about that moment is chaos. It's a chaotic place. That Fort and Webster, there's so many different, and I think for us, when we come into this room, we feel a very similar pressure as a participant in the grind of what it means to live in the city. We're carrying these burdens of expectation, these deliverables. We're trying to get to somewhere on time. We're at a four-way stop where everyone's in a hurry, there is zero grace. But what we take communion, what we're trying to rebel against is that sense of urgency and that push to rush and to go. We're just saying for a minute, you've got all kinds of transition in your story. But have you slowed down and let the love of God meet you in that transition? Have you slowed down and remember that a church done well is not a bunch of people honking at you and flipping you off and telling you that you're an idiot, but navigating and nurturing and loving us through the hard transitions, while also saying, my gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this intersection. Communion is a space where we let the ground settle for a minute. We process those pressures through the lens of the solution not just being try harder, idiot, but rather the love of God is with you, the love of God is for you, the love of God is inviting you to say yes to not a comfortable, easy story from a tame lion, but a much better picture of what it means to bring flourishing to your life than the life of others than one you could pencil out yourself. Yes, even you with a master's degree. We remember that it's the broken body and shed blood of Jesus that is the cornerstone of where we as followers of Jesus find hope, and where if you who are skeptical and uncertain can begin to honestly wrestle with what the invitation of God may actually be in your story. Can I pray for us as we go to this time? Lord, as we come to this time, we just acknowledge our own transitions. We think about our own transitions. And we invite your love to meet us in them. Thank you for that invitation. In the name of Jesus, amen.